today we'll be talking about 4 pro tips to keep in mind when you go for a DIY trek. Now these 4 points, I say, they can make or break your DIY trek, and these are almost like deal breakers. I'm Suhas from Indiahikes and you're watching the DIY trek series. The first point is about actually studying the maps much before you go on a trek. And when I'm talking about maps, there are 3 different maps that I'm referring to. There is one physical map that I usually use. The second one is Google Maps, and the third one is Google Earth. Now when I'm talking about these 3 maps, each one will have its own flavor and variety to it. The first one, the physical map, that's where you get a geographical bearing of where you're heading to. You get a very big perspective of where the trek is located, and oftentimes this is something very exciting and interesting because you find something else around the particular region which you might have not planned for. So a bigger perspective of where you're heading to is what the physical map does. The second thing, the Google Maps, that's where it helps you to navigate, navigation in terms of reaching the start point, knowing what all cities you will cover, the villages that you might encounter to reach the starting location of your trek. And third is one of the most important things, the Google Earth. That's where you're actually zooming into the trail. Now when I'm talking about that, you need to understand the geographical features that you might get, and especially if you're planning for a Himalayan trek, then even more important. I remember a few years ago when I was going on an exploration, there was a trail which was actually facing towards the north, and I knew that this is going to be somewhere a shadow region where you might encounter snow. And after 3 days of trekking, exactly as what I had anticipated, you had snow over there on the trail. So understanding what are the different features that you might have, a ridge, a summit, or knowing about this or studying is very important before you go on your trek. The second thing is going to be about having the knowledge or gaining knowledge about the trekking world itself. I say that knowledge plays a very big factor. If you're planning on Himalayan trek and planning to do it on your own without the help of any organization or a guide, then it is very important that you are well read about it. Deep dive into each one of the topics. You need to be aware of how to pitch your own tents perhaps, know the concept of turnaround time, how to trek safely, how to trek sustainably, very important. And the smallest of details play a big factor. What do you do if you have an injury perhaps? What are the symptoms of AMS? These are all very important topics that one needs to know about, and there are no 2 ways to go about it. Unfortunately, you will have to go back to your school days. You will have to take a pen and paper, you have to write it down, you have to know these things. And when you start doing it, one small step at a time, you start trekking around your own city, you go to the Western Ghats, and one day perhaps to the Himalayas as well. These experiences, these knowledge, it just keeps adding on, and that's how you start getting confidence to do a trek on your own. Coming to the third point, that is going to be about getting in touch with the locals. The power of local knowledge, I think what I would call it as, is again a very crucial thing. You get in touch with as many stakeholders as possible. You speak to the drivers, you speak to the shopkeepers, the guides, the shepherds that you might find on the trail. The more information you start gathering about that particular trek, the particular trail, you have a lot of rich information. I've seen that it's going to be very different. Each person will have their own variation to it, new twist to it. Recently we went on a trek to Rantankareko in Kumaon region, and I remember our senior trek leader Nitesh, who was there with us. He went on speaking to n number of people. He just kept on asking the same questions perhaps, but trying to learn from each of these conversations, because the power of local knowledge is something that you will not get it anywhere. Even in the online world, if you search for it, you're not going to get it. So it's very important that you get these information from the local people over there. And coming to the last point, that is where if you are trekking on your own as a group, it is very important that you have one clear-cut leader. The leader who's taking those important decisions, the person who can take those calls. So a person who is that one single person as a leader is very important. and then the leader actually giving responsibilities to the team. And one other thing that I would want to cover is, the leader actually following up and making them accountable. So, I would say these are the 4 important things that I usually do whenever I'm going for a trek around Bangalore or the Western Ghats or the Himalayas. And I feel if you follow these things, it's going to help you be well prepared, and you're going to have an adventure of a lifetime as well. So these are the 4 pro tips that I wanted to cover today. If you have more tips that you'd want to share with everyone, then you can use the comments below over here. If you want to know more about DIY trekking or how to trek on your own, you can always write to me. You can send it to suhas@indiahikes.com. And if you want to know more about the trekking world and everything, please make sure that you follow us and hit the bell icon to get more notifications about the videos that we publish. You can also follow us on social media platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, and other places which will help you to go and do a trek on your own.